Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. Today I want to talk a bit about boomers because I feel like this is always such a hot topic and blaming boomers for everything, and this is the question that I'm actually going to answer today because I woke up to this comment from Psyche Hacker 6914, and shout out to that person for giving me inspiration for this video today. And this is how it starts, and I'm gonna tackle this first part because it's a bit longer of a comment. And this was under my Americans Being Obsessed with Money video, if you care to see the whole comment. And it says, accounting finance should have been mandatory in high schools since Sputnik. Do you think boomers are to blame that it was not? So I don't know how many Americans are watching this video, and I would be curious to hear about, was financial literacy offered as a class in your high school? For me, it was, but not for my grade. So by the time my brother was going through and finishing high school, they did offer that class to him, and he had to take it at some point. However, my grade got out where we didn't have that. And one of the things that I've learned from reading the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, I'm just going to post a picture of it. I would show the book, but I don't know where mine is right now, and I'm still working on reading it. And I know that some people may think, oh, you're reading this book because you're trying to become wealthy. Well, building wealth takes a lot of effort, and I do not claim to be the most financially literate person. However, now that my goal is home ownership, it has become something that I am more interested in. And what I've learned from this book, and I've also read a little bit from the Psychology of Money book, also going to show a picture of that here. I don't own this book, but I would like to at some point, is that wealth building is not always about how much money you make, but also about how you choose to spend your money. So behavior, and that's where the Psychology of Money book talks a lot. Because I know that, for instance, my brother's financial literacy class, they did talk quite a bit about you can, choose your career path based on how much money you plan to have in the future. But now that I'm working more, I understand that being able to keep my money is not always about how much I'm earning, but again, about how I'm choosing to spend my money. So now that I have the goal of home ownership, I do think more critically maybe about how I'm spending my money. Good examples of people who I've seen who have been able to own homes fall into two camps. Either they were very strict at budgeting for some years and then had money for a down payment, or their parents helped them out, which I think lends nicely to this idea of boomers and whether we should blame them for the financial woes of the younger generation. There was one YouTube video I was watching, and I will try to find the link for it if I can and post it below, that talked about how throughout boomers' lives they voted for policies that would constantly favor them. So as they continued to grow, this led to the amassment of wealth. However, I think that is difficult to prove, because also in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, it does talk about how there is unlimited earning potential for things like investments in stocks and how that market is going to continue growing over time. And yes, it very much so has, probably in the last 25 years. And another interesting discussion is, I think that, like all great nations, there's going to be some collapse or fall at some point. That kind of inevitably has happened over and over again throughout history. And what is one of the primary ways that this happens? Usually there's some sort of economic disparity that becomes very large between the rich and the poor, which leads to an uprising and, yeah, a lot of bad things. So there's that to think about, that maybe this is just a natural progression of what starts to happen in general in history. I do not claim to be a big history buff or historian or whatever. I'm not super into history, but these are just things that I've gathered from talking to other people who are more into history than myself. Another thing that this YouTube video talks about that I would like to find and post down here is that once boomers die, it is going to be seen as the greatest wealth transfer of all time. So what's going to happen to all the houses that boomers live in? Well, inevitably they're going to go back on the market. And are they going to be bought up by big corporations, or are they going to be handed down to other family members? So one thing I think to think about also, and I don't know how this is going to come across, but I really want you to critically think about this, is, do you have boomers in your life? Can you benefit from a symbiotic relationship with them? I mean, if you think about, so first off, I'm the firstborn in my entire family on both sides, my mom's side, my dad's side. I'm approaching 30 here in like a couple years, and I still am not married or have kids. And is that something my family would like to see? I don't know, maybe. But that would probably be something that would be more financially viable if I felt like I had support in a lot of ways, whether that is, financially with trying to get a home. People did comment on this in my Russian video. They're like, Mikaela has so much family. How does she have to work so much? And I'm like, well, part of that is just, a moral, personal thing. I don't necessarily, want to ask my family for money. They just, But I'm saying in terms of, this kind of thing that we're talking about, it's like, yeah, what do people want to see for their young ones? And the idea of people helping out with their children buying houses if they have the financial means to is a very real thing that happens. And I don't think we should begrudge these people that opportunity, because some people are fortunate enough to be in that situation, and honestly, good for them. We should be happy for them, I think. I think it's very easy with these kinds of topics that people feel very insecure about to become very jealous and get frustrated and, wish it was you. But what I'm trying to say is maybe there are ways that it could be you. So yeah, this whole wealth transfer thing, I know that there's an increase also in multi-generational living because of this. And then the other thing is boomers are living longer. Older people are living longer, which means their houses are not being vacated. And another thing that I'm now understanding is zoning laws. You look at a place like Texas where they just keep building, there aren't a lot of zoning laws, and it's very easy to own a house there, financially speaking, because they exist. And are constantly being built. They keep up with the demand, and then they have a lot of industry there, so people keep coming in. A place like where I live, there already are a lot of people here, and it already feels like people are living on top of each other, and then, people are getting older and trying to move out and, like, establish themselves. And another phenomenon that's happening is that people, after COVID, especially from New York City, are coming down and buying properties down in New Jersey because they're bringing their city money down here and living here because, God forbid there's another COVID, and then we don't want to be stuck in the city because we're going to go stir crazy, which, is true. And I do appreciate that I got sent home from Kyrgyzstan, not really my choice, but, I did, to the US because I had a car. I was able to go to parks and get out. I know people in cities have a much harder time because you have to be very selective about when you go out, and I know in Kyrgyzstan there were like police ordinances with you had to like very carefully document, like, I'm going out to the store, so that you wouldn't get fined. Anyway, that's a bit of a digression. But yeah, I mean, going back to the housing discussion, it is something to keep in mind that at some point, boomers are going to die and their money is going to be given to other people. So blaming them, I mean, the thing that I think sometimes is difficult for people to acknowledge is that at the end of the day, everybody does want the best for themselves, right? While it's great to care about other people, everybody wants the best for themselves and the best for their families. So, voting for policies that are going to benefit you, I don't see that as inherently wrong. Now, I think it is easier to sit around and blame other people for why things are difficult. And maybe I'm somebody who just prefers to do difficult things. I quote this all the time. I don't know where it's from. If you do, you can tell me. But if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. And I think about all the things that I've tried to do that were hard, right? Like, I was dissuaded by multiple family members from trying to get into NASA. At the end of the day, NASA is a job, okay? As I did talk about, it's cool. It's a cool job, but it is a job. Got into NASA, wanted to become fluent in a second language, which I'll be honest is not super easy to become second in a fluent language in a place like the US unless I went and lived in New York City, or I did speak Spanish for a while, but culturally Russian felt like a better fit, so I stuck with that more long term. So, I think that the housing market and economics is another thing that it is really difficult for the younger generation. And I've been reading a lot of articles recently on these things called NEETs, which are not in, let me remember, education or training or employed. Not employed or in education or training. There we go. Post a link about that below. I think that is kind of a way of saying that people have given up. And I don't know if that's people see a lot of bad news and they're like, oh, everything is so hard. Or people like to talk about things being hard. And it's interesting to me, why that is, because what I found is that I want to be around people or have discussions with people where they tell me how they did hard things, because I want to figure out, well, how do I get that thing? And I know, again, it's easier to just be like, oh, well, it's so hard, I can't do it. I think an example of this is like getting a job in Finland as a foreign person. People say it's really hard. I did get one. Was it hard? Probably about as hard as getting a job in the US. But as I've talked about, I like the job I have here now, which is why I'm sticking with that one for now. The job I had in Finland served its purpose, but it, wasn't like my dream job. In terms of what I do for work now and what I've studied, I would say it is my dream job. Like, honestly. So, I think the boomers discussion and blaming boomers, I don't think they're to blame. I think that there's an entire economic system and political system that is, behind the way that things look like they affect other people. I mean, I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that naturally, as people get older, they just tend to have more money. So, things are always harder for younger people. If you talk to older people, a lot of times they'll recall in vivid detail, oh, there was this time when, we had no money. Talked to one of my grandmothers this weekend who was telling me that they didn't get wedding rings for each other. They just got some simple wedding bands because she preferred to spend the money that they did have on new furniture for the house. They had to make choices. They had to make sacrifices for what they wanted. So I think it's kind of natural and maybe a rite of passage for everybody when they're young that they, have to make difficult financial choices. I do think one of the things that I see, and I wonder a little bit why I see this, but I also wonder if my theory on this has any validity. So maybe I know I'm not that old, but I'm already getting to a point where I'm like, wow, like when I was younger, kind of thing. People laugh at me for this, but honestly, and older people do look at youth and like envy it because they don't have it anymore. And there's something, beautiful about youth, not even just physically, but also maybe psychologically. All of the opportunities that you still have before you are very unique to being young. And I wonder sometimes, in what I've seen, is that people tend to undermine good things that other people have because they're jealous. And I think in some ways, it's sad but true. I think that when you're older, you start to become jealous of younger people because you kind of miss your own youth. And I wonder a lot of times if, and boomers, I think, and it's not just boomers, I think any older generation is very quick to minimize younger generations sometimes. Like, oh, they don't work as hard as we did. I mean, how can you prove that, honestly? If you have more people who are working multiple jobs at this point, can you really say that, oh, they don't work as hard? And in general, it is very easy and it is, cognitive laziness to be able to group everybody together and be like, this generation is this generation is this. Of course, there are different generational trends that are shaped by the way that we have grown up. Like, obviously, younger kids are more technologically adept. They grow up with that stuff, the way that, older people may not know how to use anything technological. So, and again, the products of environment thing. So these things are natural and they make sense. I do worry about the ways that, uh, technology affects people's attention spans and their willingness to do things that are hard. I tried to drill this home with my sister a little bit because she really loves those YouTube short things. And I mean, adults like them too. I wouldn't say it's just a kid thing. But I think that that's one of those things too. It's like a sort of dopamine detox thing almost. If you want to start accomplishing things, which is, going to make you feel better in the long run when you accomplish something and you get it, like you're the only one in control of that. And I think that there comes a point where, like, yes, people have different situations, opportunities, things they're exposed to, things that they were given, but that doesn't change the fact that you can choose your own future and you can try very hard to get out of those situations if you don't like them. And yes, there's always well, you can argue that this person lacks access because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm not going to deny that that's true, but maybe I find that that's a very negative way to look at trying to move ahead in life. I think if you focus on all the positive things, and this is really, I will post a link about this, a scarcity versus abundance mindset, which I think for a very long time I had a scarcity mindset where I was like, it's so hard to do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. And then I just got to a point where I'm like, you know what, if this is the thing that I want, I can start making steps towards trying to get that thing. Right now it's a house. Okay. So I'm like, I have to figure out everything there is about the US housing market, about personal finance and budgeting. And this is what I'm actively working on. This is my current goal. I do believe that setting goals and trying to achieve goals is probably one of the easiest ways, maybe easy is not the right word, but strongest ways to build strong self-worth, a good sense of self-worth. And again, I preach this a lot, but I think that if everybody had good self-worth, the world would be a better place. Yeah, another thing I find interesting, I guess this channel is starting to get quite a lot of attention because now I'm getting some comments that are very interesting, for lack of a better way of putting it, where people, and I'm fine with people, like, arguing with me and insulting me, quite frankly, because you're entitled to your opinion. That's fine. But, I'm here because I'm sharing my own opinion, and I enjoy the meaningful discussions sometimes that come as a result of it, and I appreciate all the user engagement that I get. I really do. If you don't like my videos, you don't have to watch them. Nobody's making you. It's not like I'm talking to you in real life and you have to defend yourself against me. So, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about this platform is that I am shielded from a lot of those, innate feelings of, oh, I have to like defend what I'm feeling, which you don't. Okay, nobody has to do that to anybody. That's like how it goes, and sooner you figure that out, the easier your life's going to be. Also, so yeah, I mean, but thank you everybody. Really, comments, good and bad, because they really make me think sometimes, and give me ideas for other videos where I can also disseminate, I think, some of the research that I've done, as well as the conclusions I've come to as a result of the research I've done. And I'm more than happy to, link it to all the stuff that I have read or viewed on these different topics. So I hope this was interesting. I think that was a very interesting question, and it definitely skipped a couple steps in terms of, I know I say this, but it's like I have so many ideas for videos all the time, and then this one I was like, okay, yeah, this is the one I want to do today. So thank you, and I hope everybody has a very nice rest of the day. This is a bit of a late video today, so maybe you see it tomorrow, and I guess until my next video, and hopefully I'll wake up in the morning tomorrow and have more inspiration. Okay, thank you everybody, and have a nice day. Bye!